Let's go. It's a Monday edition of Daily Faceoff Live. Tyler Yaremchuk away on vacation today. That means you've got me in the host chair alongside my pal, Colby Cohen. Colby, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Frank. Always fun to come off a weekend full of hockey, some NFL football. Obviously, we know Tyler was taking in the sights in Seattle to see his Buffalo Bills, so I'll do my best not to mess up today, Frank.
Yeah, I think you'll be just fine. Today's edition of Daily Faceoff Live is presented by Fountain Tire. You and your family's safety is important. Fountain Tire specializes in tire and auto service, and you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service because at Fountain Tire, they do both. They'll treat your vehicle like it's theirs. If you need new tires or maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop into Fountain Tire and they'll sort you out. And right now you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 tires, including Goodyear, until December 14th, plus save $50 more on any service of $150. Some restrictions apply. Stop into Fountain Tire or make an appointment. Check out fountaintire.com. Colby, some busy Monday morning already. The Carolina Hurricanes are dealing with a goaltending issue. They've recalled Spencer Martin, and the contract news this morning: Jake McCabe has re-signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's a 5-year deal times $4.51 million AAV. There's actually some deferred salary in there. He's going to end up with $23.5 million, but only $4.51 million per year on the books. What do you think of that deal quickly?
I think it's a good deal for both sides. This is a guy who plays top 4 minutes, who got extra years with a lower AAV. So I really do. I think this was a win on both sides of the table.
Yeah, pretty versatile, rock solid guy in Jake McCabe. But let's start with some of the more interesting news over the weekend that was percolating, and that was some drama on Long Island. It was an interesting scene on Saturday. The Islanders signed Matt Martin to a 1-year deal after he was with the club on a PTO. And Pierre Engvall, who went through waivers with 6 years left on his deal, and he was recalled from AHL Bridgeport. So the interesting part of it was, instead of Patrick Waugh addressing reporters before Saturday's game in a back-to-back scenario, Lou Lamorello was there, and Patrick Waugh was not made available. Then afterwards, and as you see the quote from Stefan Rosner here, kind of maybe threw a little bit of shade Lou's way. He said, we know what he did for this team, addressing Pierre Engvall. And he said, I guess Lou thought it was a good moment for him to be back and play. Similar kind of quote when it came to the decision to bring and sign Matt Martin. He said, having Marty back in the lineup, he brings leadership experience and that physicality that we feel, and Lou thinks it's important for us. Now, normally, Colby, I wouldn't read anything into these quotes, but given what Patrick Waugh has been through in Colorado and the power struggle that existed there between himself and Joe Sakic, what do you think? What do you make of the situation?
Well, let's remember, he walked away from that team because he didn't have enough control over player personnel decisions. Right now, this absolutely reeks of that and what is going on. And here's another thing that I found really interesting. We have Morning Cup of Hockey on the Daily Faceoff Monday through Thursday, right? We reached out to a number of players in and around the Islanders, okay, former players. Nobody would come on and talk about this. We then reached out to media members that cover the New York Islanders on a day-to-day basis. Nobody would come on and talk about this. And to me, when you're giving all these different people an opportunity to come on a show and nobody will touch it, they didn't say I'm busy. They didn't say I can't come on. They said, yeah, we're not going to touch that. To me, that tells you that there's a story. And that tells you that everybody's scared of what Lou's going to think, and is Lou going to retaliate, and how's Lou going to react. And when you put all these pieces together, Frank, it's hard to sit here and say that there is not an issue on Long Island and there is not a situation brewing where, this marriage between Lou Lamorello and Patrick Waugh potentially could be souring.
I agree with you. I would say the fact that those sort of comments were thrown in there, like, there's really no need for it, right? Like, if you were on lockstep and on board with it, then you would just, certainly applaud the
New York Islanders. It's easy to say that.
Right. And that certainly isn't the case. And given the past history, I'm not willing to say that it's nothing. So certainly a storyline to keep in mind. And when you look at this team so far this year, completely mediocre results, which is kind of what we've come to expect from the Islanders the last few years.
Yeah, Frank, and it makes you wonder, why did Patrick Waugh, who couldn't get along with Joe Sakic, who gave him the title of VP of Hockey Operations, who made him a part of the conversation with player personnel, and even talking to Joe Sakic about the Patrick Waugh situation, to this day, Joe Sakic says he was involved in these conversations. He had input. Why did Patrick Waugh think, and why did Lou Lamoriello think, two of the most fiery guys there is, that this could work when you have one guy who, at the end of the day, it's his way or the highway? I'm just not sure why any of us were under the impression that this could work long term. I don't think it will, Frank. And really, to be honest, like, I've been saying that I think it's time for Lou to go. I've said that now for a year plus on our show on Morning Cup of Hockey, and I continue to say it. To me, it seems like the game is potentially passing him by. Look at the way his team plays. Look how slow they are.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's the game's passing him by. It's just that doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. I mean, you're banging your head against the wall if you're an Islander fan. Your team is the second fastest team on the ice, like 75 nights a year. And there's really a lack of talent. You've got three really talented players: Barzal, Dobson, Sorokin. Maybe you could add in Bo Horvat into that conversation. But to me, it's the same that we've seen from the Islanders year after year.
Team speed is the biggest issue. And, Barzal has one goal. Duclair, obviously, they did bring him in. He's hurt. To think Siplikov was just going to start in the NHL and tear it up, that was wishful thinking. You just don't see that. And then their back end has a foot speed problem, right? I mean, no disrespect to Pellick and Pulick and Riley and Mayfield. These guys, they're not the fastest players. This game gets faster every year, Frank. So this is a fascinating situation to me. And I just have to wonder, like, what is ownership going to do? Because they've sat on their hands and they've stayed out of it. And you just have to wonder how long that's going to continue.
Yeah, certainly a fair question to ask, and certainly an interesting situation brewing on the island. Let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets, who extended their franchised best start to remain perfect 8-0 over the weekend. And what I love about watching this Jets team, Colby, is it doesn't really matter who's in, who's out. Connor Hellebuck, you're on the bench on Saturday night. They don't miss a beat. It's this team's identity that I think I really counted out to start the year that is such a powerful driving force in their start. What do you think?
I mean, look, Frank, when you watch the way that this team is playing, you look down the middle, and then you look at their puck management. To me, they're almost playing a playoff style of hockey to start this season, right? I think a lot of teams don't manage the puck early in the year, and you look at the way that Winnipeg is managing the puck. They're owning the blue lines. They're owning the areas between the tops of the circles and the blue lines. They're not turning the puck over. And look, let's talk Connor Hellebuck. The guy's he's been great. He's off to a great start. And when you put all those things together early in a season, you get a team that looks like one of the best teams. Here's my question. And I kind of learned this the hard way working in Chicago for a couple of years. I didn't used to watch Winnipeg a lot. Well, then I'm in Chicago. Then we see Winnipeg pretty frequently. The Winnipeg team that we see sometimes early in the year is not the Winnipeg team that we see, maybe January and February. So how do they keep this up? How do they not have those big peaks and valleys that they've had in other seasons?
Yeah, and I would say 2 points of concern, if you even want to call it that, are one, how much they're scoring, 4.3 goals a game, probably not sustainable. The way they've defended, though, is sustainable at 2 goals against. They've proven that last year. It's an accomplishment to be under 200 goals against in a season. And that's exactly where the Jets were last season. And then their power play, 43% so far. Their power play really struggled last year. It kind of was on the uptick after they brought in Sean Monahan at the trade deadline or before that. And then it kind of fell off again. And another big reason why their playoff run ended up being so short, they couldn't take advantage of special teams. So I think I've been kind of surprised at how much the Jets have scored. Low key, they have some really good offensive players. It's been the depth, though, that seemingly has won the day for them.
Yeah, look, I think when a team is on a streak like this, you have guys in the bottom of your lineup picking up the slack, right? I think every team's dream is when your third and your fourth line is continuing to produce and help. And then how about Cole Perfetti? He has come in this year and taken a big step. so often with young players, it's not a straight line. As a matter of fact, it never is a perfectly straight line. But when you have a guy who comes back after a year, who gets a little bit more money, and then he comes back onto your team, and then he starts taking the next steps, that's something that an organization can build around. They lost Rutger McGroarty from their pipeline. We all know about that saga, that trade. But again, I was pretty critical of Cole Perfetti last season at times. I felt like he disappeared a lot. I didn't like that whole mic'd up situation that happened, I think, in the middle of the season last year. But I'll give the guy credit because he's off to a really good start, and he's really looking to sort of secure who and what he is in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, big prove it year for Perfetti. 2-year times $3.25 million deal signed halfway through training camp. Was kind of a prove it year. And when you look at his season last year, 19 goals and how impressive that was, almost all of that production came in the first half of that season. He was really quiet down the stretch to the point where he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs. And now you're watching him and going, there's no way that guy is going to be on the outside looking in when it comes to the postseason this year for the Jets. 10% of the schedule they're already through and remain perfect at 8-0. Let's talk about another team that has been certainly putting pucks in the net and certainly more of late, actually two teams. So I'll give you this. The Colorado Avalanche have won 5 in a row. The Buffalo Sabres have won 3 in a row. Both teams had awful starts to the year. Which team are you more confident has figured it out at this point?
Colorado. I mean, even though, and you see it right here on the screen, 4-4-1 Buffalo, or excuse me, Buffalo is 4-1-1 in their last 6 games, right? So they are, it's more than just the 3-game win streak. But, you know, when I look at Colorado, I know they've got depth issues, but they have something that other teams don't have. They've got McKinnon, they've got Makar, they've got Devon Taves. So I'm always going to go Colorado in this discussion, Frank. And I think Colorado ultimately is a playoff team this year, especially if they get saves. You know, watching them last night, that game is pretty tight. They look like they're in control, and Noonan makes a couple of big time saves. And I might not be saying his name right, but then all of a sudden they give up a couple of goals, you know, late, and that game gets really tight. So at the end of the day, Frank, I'm putting my chips on Colorado here, not Buffalo. I don't think long-term Buffalo is got enough in the tank to be a playoff team this year.
See, look, the conventional answer, of course, here is Colorado, but I'm going to take the dissenting point of view here. I'm going to take the Sabres because I still have serious questions about the Avs and their goaltending. Look, Justus Annunen has been really good. 4 straight starts, 4-0, 9.27 save percentage in that stretch of time. And you mentioned McKinnon and Makar, 9-game point streaks to start the year. Unbelievable what they've been able to produce. And it is such a small crop of that Colorado team that actually is producing. Ross Colton is in that category as well. 8 goals in 9 games. His minutes are way up. He's playing 6 minutes more a night than he's averaged in his entire career.
And he's getting a lot of first power play minutes.
He's leading the league in power play goals.
On a unit that finds you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fantastic. Like, there's no denying that. But the Sabres really struggled to score early. They've got 25 goals in their last 5 games. To me, I'm looking at it going, I think if Buffalo can get their offense moving in the right direction, that they're going to be in better shape right now in terms of actually getting some of those answers. And yes, I know Nichushkin's coming back in about 3 weeks for Colorado, and things are going to continue to get better. What if you can get Landeskog back? The depth is going to be key. I have real serious reservations about Colorado and their ability. Can Justus Annunen, can he play like that for the next 50 plus games? Like, they've got real questions in net that I don't think that they've answered yet.
Yeah, and I think Georgiev can still be a part of a tandem during the regular season. Like, I'm not just going to write him off. I mean, this is a guy, Georgiev, who had how many wins last year? You know, quite a few in the regular season. So I know it hasn't started well for him, and I've never been the biggest fan of him, to be honest, but I still think he's a competent NHL goaltender who had a really poor start. So I hear you. I think
the sample size is too long. 74 games last year, 897 save percentage, 63 in the regular season, 11 in the postseason.
How many
terrible
wins?
Numbers this year, pending UFA.
How many wins last year?
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. How many wins did they get in the playoffs?
I don't remember.
You can't win with that type of goaltending.
I'm not saying, but we're not talking about who's going to go further in the playoffs.
Correct. Well, we know the answer to that if they both get in would be Colorado. We get
Okay.
it. So anyway, speaking of goaltending, though, perfect transition to our fourth topic, which is the Flyers goaltending, which has really struggled. Alexei Kolosov made his NHL debut on Sunday night against the Montreal Canadiens. He gave up 4 goals on his first 14 shots faced, and he was spelling a group that had Ivan Fedotov really struggling to start the year, .821 save percentage in his 3 games. Sam Ersson, the guy expected to be carrying the ball for the Flyers at .872. What do the Flyers do from here? Where do they go with their trio in net?
Yeah, I mean, look, and I watched that Flyers game last night, and I would say only one of the 4 goals was a bad goal. But you know what? This is the National Hockey League. If you want to win in the NHL, you need a goalie, Frank, that's going to save pucks that he shouldn't. Okay, I need more than just, well, he was okay. And that's what he was. He was just okay last night. And granted, it's his first NHL game. He's played a little bit in Lehigh Valley for the Phantoms. We know the drama that was surrounding him not wanting to come. But
does this take some pressure off of that? Does this allow the Flyers to turn around to Kolosov and say, hey, it's great that you got a taste, but you've got a lot more work to do. Get back to the AHL?
To be honest with you, Fedotov has just been so bad that I think Kolosov should get another opportunity. Like, I think you should keep him up in the NHL for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Because look, Fedotov played a couple of games last year under tough circumstances, and he was bad. He played preseason this year, and he wasn't very good. He played the beginning of the start of this season, and he wasn't very good. I just don't know how a guy who's that big, Frank, can let in that many goals and you can find that many holes. I just can't understand that. I can't wrap my head around it. But
he's so big and so unathletic.
What about the Fedotov contract? I mean, he got a pretty nice sizable contract, and I understand you had to do it in order to keep him here. He could have gone and walked and gone elsewhere. And, the Flyers of goaltending has been as an old a story as since you and I have been on this planet. We both grew up in the Philadelphia market. I don't know what they do, Frank, because we're right back to where we were pre-Carter Hart. They've got no goaltender. They don't have a starter. It's a problem. It's not the only problem, but when your goalie lets in a soft goal, when you're in a game, the deflation on your bench, it's impossible to overcome, especially with that roster.
Yeah, Flyers 2-6-1. Are they 32nd out of 32 teams in goaltending? Is that where you'd rank them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So let's give a little love to Cole Caulfield as well. He scores twice on Sunday night. He was tied for the league lead at one point before Nico Hischier scored again. How many goals for Caulfield this year?
I hope he scores 40. I think the hockey gods, the karma, the talent of the kid, I hope he's a 40-goal man this year, and I think he could do it.
He certainly seems like he's been able to find some open ice and space, that free space, a lot easier, and gotten more comfortable in the NHL. Speaking of 40-goal scorers, let's talk about Steven Stamkos and his return to Tampa Bay tonight. Pleased to welcome Alex Daugherty, who covers the Nashville Predators for the Tennessean. Alex does a fantastic job. He's all over things with the Preds. Alex, look, a lot of build up to this game tonight. Nashville visiting Tampa. How do you think Steven Stamkos will handle it? What do you think it's been like for him the last 24 to 48 hours?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think Stamkos has been probably wanting to get this out of the way since he moved to Nashville. I don't think he wants to talk about it anymore. I think he wants to move on. I think Coach Andrew Brunette actually said the same thing after the Columbus win on Saturday. He said, like, look, it's going to be an emotional game. We're also ready to get it out of the way because it felt like this kind of looming thing over everybody. That being said, I mean, it's going to be a cool moment, right? I mean, it's going to be a big moment for a guy that has had the impact that Steven Stamkos has had in Tampa to go out on that ice, to get some sort of, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of presentation or something by Tampa, maybe not a lot, but I don't know what that's going to look like. But and then there's the fact that he has 1 goal in 8 games. He has 1 point in 8 games for Nashville. Has been a big part of why they've had they've struggled at the start. It's actually I was looking at this before it came on. Like it's the 7th time in his career that he's had 1 point in an 8-game stretch, and most of that is from his rookie year. So it's like arguably his worst stretch in I don't know 6, 7, 8 years. I mean it's kind of remarkable, and it's not for lack of trying. I mean he has got some looks. He's had time on the power play. He's hit the post a few times. I think it was Alex Lyon that had that crazy paddle save against Detroit. He's had so many chances. It's just, for whatever reason, things are not falling. The timing is just off. I do think that tonight's going to be a big moment for him. And I'm not alone in thinking this, but you gotta think that he's going to make an impact somehow tonight. He's going to score a goal. He's going to get an assist. He's going to do something. And that's why, that's why he gets paid what he gets paid. And I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Look, I don't think you can discount the fact that a guy plays in one market his whole career. He changes teams. Everything about his life changes. His kids, where you're eating your pregame meals, your like everything. And I think these are human beings. So I think he gets a little bit more time, to adjust himself to the Nashville Predators before we, call this maybe a bad signing or something like that. And I'm not suggesting anybody is. I'm just pointing out some of the facts. But let's talk about the power play a little bit. You look at this power play unit, and I mean, you're talking about 5 NHL All-Stars, right? You're talking about 5 guys who, when we go to country play, they're all guys being talked about who are going to play or who have represented or whatever, right? There's only one puck, though. And this power play hasn't gotten off to maybe the start everybody thought. Is this a situation where you need to maybe split up all the talent from Unit 1, although Unit 2 barely plays? But again, there's only one puck out on the ice, and you've got 5 alpha males on your power play. What have you seen?
Yeah, it's been pretty frustrating, but honestly, I do think it's getting close. I think they're figuring some things out. Let me go back to the Stamkos thing. He spent the better part of a decade with Victor Hedman and Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point and all those guys all on the same unit for the most part over the course of many years. I mean, there was not a single puck movement that he wasn't anticipating from those guys, right? For years, he knew exactly when Hedman was going to dish in the puck. He knew exactly where Kucherov was going to be. He knew the timing of everything. It was just a matter of executing it. Now he's got Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Marchessault, who he did play with, but that was a while ago. Just like timing is different, especially what I noticed most importantly is Roman Josi, great power play quarterback, but he does do things differently than Victor Hedman. He's a little bit more mobile, right? He moves a little bit more. He comes down, he swoops around. He goes below the circles a little bit more. He's just a more mobile guy. I think
he's a little erratic compared to Hedman.
Exactly, right. Not as steady, maybe not as predictable as well. And so that takes time. So I think that's a big part of it. And like you said, the second power play unit has actually scored a couple goals already. I mean, they've been that second unit with Brady Shea and Tommy Novak. I mean, they've actually done some pretty good work. But you're not going to not put out the top unit for a long period of time. I think it's coming. They've figured out a little bit more of their entries. Their entries have looked better. That was an issue early, as they couldn't enter the zone. Jonathan Marchessault has helped with that a lot. He's a much better power play entry guy. So I don't know. I think it's gonna end up being better than it was last year. But I don't think it's going to be some top 3, top 5 unit this year. It's going to struggle. It's going to take a while. It'll be top 10, but I don't think it's going to be up there with Colorado and Edmonton in terms of efficiency.
So, Alex, give me a vibe check as we close this out. I mean, this is a team that had massive expectations this year, spent a ton of money. They've kind of settled things down maybe the last week or 10 days and played a little bit better, and they've gotten stops from Saros, etc. Is this team feeling the heat at this juncture of the season? They're already 10 points back of the Jets, 8 points back of the Stars.
Well, if they hadn't gotten on a little 3-game win streak, they would be feeling the heat for sure. That win against Boston last Tuesday was a big help. I mean, they not only did they beat Boston, they destroyed them. I mean, it was no contest. I mean, they were the better team on the ice. 4-0 shutout. UC Saros gets his first win and a 33 save shutout, I think. Saros has been a big part of why we've won a couple of these games. And then on Saturday, they beat Columbus in overtime. They didn't play great throughout. They were on the second game of a back-to-back, so that could be part of it. But Marchessault goes out and gets his first kind of big moment for the Predators. I do think that they've figured out some things at the 5-on-5 level. They still need something in the top 6 that's not there. They don't have that second line centerman that's like going to distribute and create space for Stamkos and Marchessault and whoever else. So until they get that, until they find who that is, whether it's Novak or Sissons or someone else, they're going to struggle to be that sort of like constant top 6 threat that we kind of thought they would be going into the season.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch it all unfold so far. Fits and starts for the Nashville Predators. Alex Daugherty, thanks so much for joining us today from the Tennessean. Looking forward to your coverage all season long.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, Colby, time for our Ask DFO inbox question of the day. Thanks to guys who've been firing it into the chat all show long. We're going to go with this question from Joe. What 3 to 4 teams pull away from the pack in the Atlantic Division? Colby, it's amazing to look at the standings today and see where things stand. Buffalo, Toronto, Detroit, Montreal, Boston, all 4-4-1. And then you've got the Sens technically in last place in the division, 4-4-0. I mean, it's a jumbled mess. Who pulls away?
Well, look, I think the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning are kind of easy answers for me. I like the way both of those teams are playing already. I really do. I think Tampa Bay looks a little rejuvenated. I think their power play is already figuring it out. I think Nikita Kucherov, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better power play player in the National Hockey League in the last 15 years. And then I would say the Toronto Maple Leafs and, you know, watching them a little bit closer over the last couple of weeks, even though they haven't played or won over the last couple of games, you see the way, and Brian Boyle talked about this on Morning Cup of Hockey, and I couldn't agree more. You see the way Austin Matthews is playing a 200-foot game right now, and he might not be scoring like you're used to seeing, but he's so focused on those other areas of the ice under Craig Berube that I do think that ultimately long-term, they do figure it out. They do start scoring more goals. The offense does come back. And then you add that element of that toughness in the D zone, that good play down the middle. So ultimately, I would throw the Toronto Maple Leafs up in that category. And I think they're going to be a real difficult team to play against as the season moves on.
Yeah, but you're not giving me anything special or new here. So you got Tampa there. Florida's been the gold standard. Toronto's had a bunch of 100-point regular seasons in a row. I need you to go out on a ledge. Who's the fourth team?
Frank, I watched Toronto. I watched the Detroit Red Wings last night. And you know what? Edmonton tried to give them that game, and they just couldn't do it. I don't like the way that they play. They don't have the team speed. Buffalo, I have very little belief in. I really don't feel good about them. Montreal, they turn the puck over like it's a fun game to turn the puck over. So, you know, I don't know.
So is it Boston?
They look slow to me. Will they figure it out? Probably. If anything, maybe it's the Ottawa Senators. Like I haven't watched a lot of Ottawa this year. I'm not going to lie to you. So I don't feel good about the rest of that division. I really don't. I haven't liked what I've seen. I think it's going to be sort of a race to the basement. I do. I think it's going to be a lot of average play in the bottom of that division.
I think the whole division is going to be an interesting distribution of points. I said before the season started, all 8 teams get at least 80 points. You look at the standings today, every team in the division at least 500, which gets you to 82 points. I'm going to stick with the pick that I had in the beginning of the year. Buffalo Sabres in. Let's move along to our daily bets segment. Tyler on vacation, as mentioned. So that leaves us with a few plays today, courtesy of our friends at Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You see the code on your screen there, Nation, Nation. Make sure you download the app today and play at Bet365. So, a couple plays today. I got Ross Colton, anytime goal scorer, plus 170. Feels like a juicy number for a guy that, as mentioned, has 8 goals in 9 games on an absolute heater, leads the league in power play goals. He's got 4 power play goals, 4 at even strength. Why is that number so good at plus 170? The betting markets must be saying he can't keep it going. So that's one play, and I've got 2 others as well. I've got the Nashville Predators in that Steven Stamkos return to Tampa Bay. You know they're going to be hungry to try and get him a win. There's going to be lots of money on the board for the Preds today. Preds plus 115 on the money line, and Blackhawks Avalanche over 6.5. We talked about how the Avs have been scoring goals like nobody's business. Well, the Blackhawks have had quite a few high-scoring games themselves because they've been giving up a lot of goals. So it feels like a number that the Avs could almost single-handedly get on their own. to be interesting to see Connor Bedard go up against Nathan McKinnon again, see what kind of growth he's had in year 2. That'll do it for our daily bets presented by Bet365 and brings us, Colby, to garbage time to wrap up today's show. Just wanted to give a little love to Adam Johnson and his family. It's been 1 year since his tragic passing on the ice after that awful skate cut injury, and certainly still one that we're all kind of trying to wrap our brains around how this could happen in our sport. And you see this, a moment of silence to celebrate and remember him, who wore number 47 seconds. Today is 1 year to the day. The nice thing, Colby, for me, if there is a nice thing, just the change that has come in the game, just coaching youth hockey. I'm in the rink every time before we start a game. Referee comes to the bench. Hey, making sure everyone on your team has the neck guard on. Mandatory now for USA Hockey at all levels under 18. And certainly something that I think was a much needed change. It's just horrible that we had to get it in the wake of such tragic news.
Yeah, it's the same thing at the junior level with the junior teams. So it's good to see guys are more aware. You see guys in the NHL wearing it. You see Claude Giroux wearing it last night for the Ottawa Senators. Hey, look, player safety. It should always be at the first and the forefront of things.
Yeah, I guess I'm still a little bit surprised how few percentage of players in the NHL are wearing it. I can't imagine having that at your disposal, having so many different options available to you and deciding to not wear it.
It's tough. It's just different. And a lot of players it's uncomfortable, and I understand the safety element of it. But, unfortunately, when you're that age, especially if you're a young guy, you don't have a family, you don't have kids, you're not really thinking about your own safety. It's just not how athletes are wired, to be honest.
Yeah. I think a conversation to still unfold, and wouldn't be surprised at some point, especially at the next CBA, if the NHL tries to move to mandating neck guards for all players to wear, particularly starting at the AHL, just like we saw with the visors. At some point, these things are probably going to change as the game continues to get safer. So Adam Johnson in our thoughts and prayers today as we wrap up Daily Faceoff Live, Monday, October 28th edition, presented by Fountain Tire. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll be back 12 noon Eastern on Tuesday. Thanks, Cole.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.